Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. The Gravity Auction. In a world where sky blue was once the promise of infinity, now the horizon only teased the desperate and disenfranchised. Gravity, that immutable force that had long gone unquestioned, had become a commodity. Once a universal law, it was now a monopolized product, parceled off like land deeds or expired food stamps. Cities were divided into districts, and each had its own gravity contract. The wealthy districts paid steep prices for strong, stable gravitational pulls that kept their opulent lives grounded. The middling classes balanced fees with modest gravity, enough to keep them tethered but always restricted. And the poor margins, the slums and ghettos, were sold scraps of gravity, barely enough to keep their feet on the ground, a cruel reminder of their place in the hierarchy. In this fractured urban ecosystem, the district of Lower Helix was a special case. It was a cluster of crumbling tenements perched on the edge of the city's gravity boundary, a place so impoverished that even the gravity company thought it wasn't worth constant oversight. But on a cold dawn, Lower Helix began to rise. Not metaphorically, but literally. The gravity contracts held only partial pull, and as the city's gravity reserves tightened, the weight holding the district down weakened. Tiles, roofs, and rusted iron railings began to shimmer against the sky as parts of the district gradually floated away from the Earth's surface. For most city dwellers, the idea of a neighborhood losing its gravity was absurd or at best a myth-worthy urban legend. But for the denizens of Lower Helix, it became terrifyingly real. Jorah, a lanky technician in his early 30s, was one of the very few who understood what was happening. He had spent years working as an assistant in the Gravity Adjustment Authority's customer center, a place where citizens came to protest, plead, or bargain for better gravitational service. Jorah had watched the subtle shifts in the gravity contracts for Lower Helix for years. In the back office, amidst obsolete data pads and blinking consoles, he discovered a hidden pattern, a secret algorithm within the Gravity Corporation's pricing model that slowly starved certain districts of gravity to force inhabitants to relocate or perish. This algorithm was called the Drift Protocol, a sinister corporate policy designed to reroute resources towards high-profit zones at the expense of the lower tiers. Jorah knew the implications. He also knew the system was rigged. The corporation had embedded suppression codes that would erase any records or whistleblowers who exposed the truth. Now, as Lower Helix began detaching from the ground, the panic had spread. Families were waking to find their homes gently lifting. Children's clotheslines swung precariously. The fragile water systems floated off base, causing cascading shortages. The elders clung to their chairs, whispering prayers to a gravity that was supposed to be eternal. Jorah decided to act. Inside his cramped apartment, nestled in a lower floor of a tilting building, he booted up his old hacking rig. His plan was desperate. Infiltrate the Gravity Corporation's central server, access the original gravity contracts, and reverse the drift protocol. The server was supposedly impenetrable, located deep underground in the corporate sector's fortress, but Jorah had something they lacked: inside knowledge and the element of surprise. He slipped out in the dead of night, dodging the gravity enforcers who patrolled the corporate perimeter with gravity stabilization guns, devices capable of restoring weight with brutal precision, sometimes at fatal levels. Using his small stature and knowledge of maintenance corridors, he slipped into the underground subways, which were still anchored by emergency gravity reserves. Tensions in Lower Helix escalated with every passing hour. Certain pockets rose higher, causing dangerous divides between floating structures. The composite plumbing and connecting cables snapped. Fires started in cooking areas where utensils floated uncontrollably, and emergency services were unable to respond effectively due to constant gravity fluctuations. Jorah's path was treacherous. He watched as graffiti sprayed on the walls depicted floating faceless figures and nooses entangled with balloons. The corporate drones broadcast propaganda, blaming the residents for illegal gravity usage and demanding immediate compliance. The masses cried out for help, but the corporations only saw debts, contractual breaches, and loss of profitability. Reaching the corporate core, Jorah found himself before a colossal vault door marked Gravity Core Server. The room was intimidating, glowing softly with hums of energy fields that simulated near-perfect gravity within its walls. He bypassed biometric locks using stolen credentials and exploited a back door in the network, inserting his code. As he penetrated deeper into the system, he uncovered the unthinkable truth. The drift protocol was intentionally designed to let low-income zones drift off the grid permanently. The corporation didn't just adjust gravity, it literally erased people by severing their connection to the planet. Jorah initiated the countercode he had created, called Anchor Override, which would reactivate dormant gravity reserves allocated in lower helix and reroute unused gravity rights from corporate donor districts in exchange for shares he hoped the masses could rally behind. But the system kicked back. Security alarms blared, and the gravity stabilizers around him fluctuated, causing his feet to lift precariously. Corporate security forces burst in, wielding stabilization rods designed to crush physical dissidents and tethering chains. Jorah fought back, slipping into the slivers of zero gravity, leveraging his movements with every inch he floated. It was a dangerous dance. Gravity was no longer his friend, but something to be manipulated or avoided. With seconds to spare, his code uploaded. The vault room sang as gravity fields pulsed outward, and a wave of renewed pull radiated towards lower helix. Back outside, one by one, the buildings began their ascent to ground. The floating homes landed with gentle thuds. Debris that had drifted away returned or floated just above the streets where it could be gathered and reused. People sobbed, the air thick with relief and disbelief. Children ran, gravity's right beneath their feet again. Jorah's message streamed across every device in the city. Gravity is a right, not a commodity. We will rise together, grounded not by contracts but by humanity. The corporate board, furious and scrambling, tried to quash the uprising, but the floodgates had opened. The gravity auction would never be the same. Districts organized, pooling gravity credits, renegotiating contracts in citizen assemblies. Lower helix became a symbol, an emblem of resistance in the age where physical laws had been sold to the highest bidder. Jorah, hailed as a hero, realized that while he had won a battle, the war was far from over. The Gravity Corporation still controlled vast territories, and their influence ran deep. But the seed of revolution was planted. Floating had become a metaphor for oppression, but now the people of the city understood that they could control their own weight. They could choose to fall or rise, but most importantly, choose to stand together. In the morning light, the skyline gleamed with a renewed brilliance. Gravity was once again the silent force beneath their feet, a force earned by unity, not currency. For more stories, like and subscribe.